Hello, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Today's session is being recorded, as you've seen by the notification. So if you do not wish to participate in a recorded session, I'm going to have to ask you to disconnect now. But you will be placed in silence mode. However, you can ask questions directly in the Q&A tool here on the Zoom platform, and they'll be addressed later in the session during the Q&A audience section. You can also post comments and questions on your preferred social channels, leveraging hashtag syntax_IIoT. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual conference, How IIoT Can Help Companies Grow, brought to you by IIoT World and sponsored by Syntax. I'm Greg Orloff with IIoT World, and on behalf of our team, welcome. For those of you joining us for the first time, please allow me to provide a little bit of a background. IIoT World is a digital media publication that covers the economic and technological implications of the transformation taking place as industrial IoT proliferates throughout the enterprise. Our mission is to help companies create a culture of innovation and connect the smarts. Industry technology, manufacturing, sensors, and the CXO decision makers who are seeking these solutions. For today's session, I'm joined by the following panelists: Mr. Jay McBain, Principal Analyst for Forrester; Carl Mitchell-Winter, Vice President of Global Engineering and R&D for Nitrex; Pugal Janakaraman, Worldwide Business Development for the Industrial IoT at Amazon Web Services; Bjorn Northidal, Vice President of Intelligent Industry Services at Syntax; and Rowan Slow, SAP Solutions Architect at Syntax. Now, we want to discuss how IoT and ERP data and systems can be combined and leveraged to help companies grow. So to a large degree, we're talking about how partnering helps companies build industrial IoT applications. So Jay, can you take a few minutes and share some insights into what the current research around concepts like ecosystems is telling us?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. And it's one thing that I wake up in the morning, every morning, reading as much as I can get my hands on and looking at the broader opportunity around industrial IoT and broader IoT as well. We know that the industry as a whole, the technology industry, is now up to $3.5 trillion. We know industrial IoT logged about $200 billion last year. The growth rates are somewhere between 25 to 30% over the next 5 years. It is one of the fastest growing, strongest market opportunities. One of the key things, though, is the ecosystem that wraps around it. These companies do not go it alone. They wrap themselves around all kinds of different other companies that influence the buyer and actually work through all the different stages of right from initial knowledge and learning through to the architecture and the planning, and obviously to the transaction and vendor selection, and then onwards from the management and services that go around it. So when we look at this market and we look at all the different kinds of players, there's some that jump out that surprise us. We're watching on the left-hand side 800,000 emerging tech companies right now. We're watching, over 100,000 IIoT companies emerge out of the garage into getting funding with VCs and private equity. We're watching AI and automation and blockchain and quantum computing and VR and MR and AR and other drones and self-driving cars. We're seeing all kinds of technology on the left. We've gone from 10,000 software companies 10 years ago to 175,000 today. And wrapped around this and other opportunities, I see 1 million software companies 10 years from now. So each of these bubbles are getting bigger, quicker, and the amount of people are having these conversations are getting broader as well. Every company in every industry is becoming a tech company. Every professional services firm is quickly moving into tech conversations. So making sense of all this is around the opportunity that we're looking at. One is that the buyers of IIoT have significantly expanded. Where it was the distribution manager, warehouse manager, smart cities, very specific buyer types, we're now seeing more generic buyers come into the market that are driving business outcomes outside of what I think the core opportunity was even a couple of years ago. We're seeing opportunities across 297 sub-industries and use cases that are just exploding, and case studies. Obviously, geographic spread, and with compliance and legislation and regulation, very geographic specific solutions coming to market. the different sector size and segment. This is not just an enterprise sale. We're seeing the smallest of small businesses right up through mid-market and all sectors and segments of sizes get involved. And then the technology categories itself are expanding. This isn't just about plastic wrapped sensors. This isn't around, very direct use cases anymore. We're looking at 26 categories with almost 200 subcategories. So a lot going on, but one of the interesting things that we're 14 months into a pandemic, why we're running this conference virtually, the number one spending area on the planet right now is automation. And it's looking at the business processes, looking at the workflows, looking at the business logic, and reframing humans to be more parallel to processes than as gates inside of them. And we're seeing industries like RPA take off. You might have saw UiPath IPO'd a few weeks ago. We're seeing all kinds of SaaS opportunities wrapped around this opportunity as well, that it's lifting all boats. And that's why we're seeing such high growth rates. The pandemic put cloud acceleration on a hockey stick. And so you may have noticed, Microsoft at 50% growth on Azure after reporting 50, 48, and 47 in the 4 quarters inside a pandemic. Google Cloud's at 46. AWS is obviously growing very quickly on a much bigger base than others. And the head of AWS just got a nice promotion to take over the parent company. So all kinds of action in here that's driving not only infrastructure, but SaaS. This new remote topology, with everyone sent home, and now with 20 to 30% of the future of work changing, is also changing this industry as well. And people rethinking what the opportunities are over the next decade, triggered by this new remote topology or more residential style network. And that's bringing in smart homes and all other kinds of things into this equation that we wouldn't have been talking about 12 months ago. And then the last major factor is every company in every industry is moving to curbside service. They're moving their business models to be wrapped more around the customer. So customer experience, partner experience, employee experience are all in the major investment zones. Obviously, the move to e-commerce and marketplace, the digitization of everything is the 4th biggest opportunity. If you think of industrial IoT across these 4 biggest spending areas, you're kind of at the crux of why everyone is coming into the market. Last couple of minutes, just some predictions that we're watching very closely as we kind of finish out 2021. And when we look across the next decade, we're watching that 76% of CEOs in every company, in every industry, in every country think that their current business model will be unrecognizable in 5 years. That's an Accenture stat. So you start to think through this and think, wow, ecosystems are the number one reason why. And when we think about ecosystems, it's not about these transacting partners anymore. Who's going to sell my solution or who's going to go in and do which? They're thinking about value creation. 1 + 1 = 3. They're thinking about co-innovation. When I said that there's going to be 825,000 new software companies in this space, who is out creating and collecting these data points and creating absolutely new models and driving new business outcomes? That's what they're thinking about. And then the network effects. When you have 35 million moving parts, it's all about how to get deeper into industries and have companies that have never talked with each other before in the same room, innovating on behalf of the customer. The second thing is we're seeing everything move subscription. And so, if you've missed last week, Dell, Apex announcements, they're moving $94 billion into subscription. IBM jettisoned their services group. They're going all in. Cisco, you're looking at HPE, everybody is all in consumption. The next thing is, how all this gets to market is changing pretty significantly as well. IoT companies looking at product-led growth, usage-based models, subscription models, direct-to-consumer models, marketplace models, all kinds of changes that are happening in how this $200 billion gets to market and who's involved, who's influencing the customer, who's driving towards the actual orchestration of all these moving parts, and then who's there in the long term, adopting the technology, integrating it, making it more sticky, and upselling, cross-selling this, over that long term. And I'd be remiss if I didn't end with marketplaces, which grew in more in 3 months in the pandemic last year than the last 10 years combined. If you wonder how all these millions of moving parts are going to come together, the hardware, the software, the services, the 7 layers of the cake and all these permutations I talked about, there is a digital connective tissue behind all of this. And how customers procure and provision in the future and get all of this delivered is going to change pretty radically. And it has already, given the pandemic. So finally, you've got 35 million customers in the middle, and you've got all these moving parts. And so whether you're a manufacturer of IoT devices, whether you're in services, whether you're in software wrapped around it, all the other value equation, it is understanding the ecosystem that wraps around the customer and making sure you're in early and often, making sure you're a part of vendor selection, and making sure you're there for the long-term value. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. That's a great way to set the stage for this conversation. It's striking to me over 3/4 of the CEOs are making a statement like that their business is going to be unrecognizable. So maybe we dovetail on that. Carl, I mean, I understand that you're focused in the team at Nitrex on IIoT from a manufacturing perspective. I mean, how is this technology progressing at your customers?
First of all, thanks, Greg, for having me here, and thank you, Syntax, for inviting me to this discussion. If I may, I would like to start with a few words on Nitrex. We've been on the market for more than 35 years, and we are a well-known international player in the field of heat treating of steels. So we have strong R&D capabilities, and that's why we have built up a documented expertise that actually enables us to offer turnkey solutions. So in other words, and that's where it ties in, we are not only providing the machine, but as well the process that is performed on the parts. We are based in Montreal, Canada, and we are operating facilities and offices in Canada, the USA, Mexico, China, and in Europe. I would assume that heat treatment is most likely a very small niche in the manufacturing, and that's why it's not so well known to our audience. Yet you have to imagine almost no product would work without its metal parts being exposed to heat at least once. So we are basically talking about gears, bearings, fasteners, pistons, hydraulic cylinders, but also knives, forks, spoons, you name it. And the size of these parts can range from a tiny gear on a Swiss watch all the way up to a big press roller or wind turbine gear. So while you see that the business processes of manufacturing companies are already mostly data-driven, and you see that Industry 4.0 is gradually becoming reality in the mechanical manufacturing, heat treating, so our expertise is somewhat in the dark. So the process is still considered a commodity on one hand, but what really happens to the part in a furnace is still some kind of a black magic. So the parts are thrown into a black hole, if you like, from which they hopefully emerge after several hours up to several days in the desired final stage. It's also worth noting that the parts are already almost completely machined, meaning they are very valuable. And if something goes wrong there, it's actually a high risk. So as we are an integrated solution provider with a unique position, as we offer the equipment, the controls, but also the services, especially our large customers have already asked us to provide them with machinery and process data for their own evaluation process. And they are on their way to correlate the data with the quality of the final products. So in addition to this initiative, customers are more and more asking for things like predictive maintenance to optimize production capacity and spare parts supply. Nonetheless, let's say getting started with a full implementation of the capabilities and the potentials of IoT and machine learning is still seen in our customer base rather skeptically. So after a first hype, let's say about 5 years ago, the topic of modeling the heat treating processes was turned out to be more complex as originally expected. And while we've been able to get some customers on board early on, I think we still have to convince the industry as a whole.
Interesting. Yeah. What do you think is the reason for the reluctance? Here we go. We get a survey popping up as well, so please feel free, audience, go ahead and fill that out as well. But what do you see as the reluctance? What's holding them back? Is it a personality issue in terms of the employees or the managers, or is it more of a technical background slowing digitalization?
It's like with any new product coming to the market, you know, there's for sure a lack of understanding to fully realize its potential. And I think this is where we still need to build up some confidence in our customer base. However, when we think about modeling, there are different challenges that we need to overcome. Some are related to the way this manufacturing process is performed. Others are more related to organizational constraints, but last but not least, the complexity of the process and what happens to the parts during heat treatment, better said, what affects the outcome. And in most cases, the parts are packed into one large batch. So for economical reasons, a batch can hold many different items made of different alloys. And then this batch goes into an oven and is treated in such a way that hopefully all the different parts will come out within their specified tolerances. So that's the goal. But we have to realize that the desired properties can vary from part to part, as can the behavior of the different materials or alloys. So you need to develop a one-size-fits-many recipe kind of for this particular load. And this requires either a lot of experience or the ability to simulate the outcome in advance, or better yet, during the process, for example, by implementing an observer that calculates the likely outcome of the parts based on mathematical models. This approach is quite successful as long as the number of variations is, let's say, comparably small. However, still the final decisions about the process are made by human experts. So if we think of large companies like OEMs or tier 1 and 2 that do perform mass production, their work scheduling specifies the process and in which equipment it has to be treated down to the smallest detail. So there's not yet much room for an automated optimization possibility. So a challenge on the way to reliable predictions arises from the uncertainties given by the in-process sensors, but also by the property evaluation of the heat-treated parts, which have a comparatively wide range that can be related to the testing equipment, but also to the humans operating it. So the necessary validation of the predictions within the given tolerances based on features and target variables with comparably high variation is therefore one of the major tasks we are focusing on. Yeah.
Very interesting. Let me throw a question over to Pugal if I can. Can you perhaps talk a little bit about providing a pre-built offer to accelerate IoT implementations to overcome some reluctance?
Definitely, Greg. Industrial IoT has been a huge focus for Amazon. I would say even from a last year announcement, the amount of announcements we made in industrial space is huge amount of services we launched. For example, one of our core service site-wise is meant for establishing connectivity into plant floors, whether it's a PLC, SCADA devices, gather the data which Carl talked about to drive insights in a seamless fashion. Even with that, one consistent ask which came from all of our customers, is there a pre-built offering with which you can bring your services, provide some hardware, take care of security, vet a bunch of partner-based solutions, package it so we don't have to spend millions of dollars to go build an Industry 4.0 solution. So we listened to that. We launched an offer last year. It's called it's an Industry 4.0 accelerator. In anything from matter of few days for showing a quick value proposition by establishing connectivity into few machines and showing some dashboards and insights. Into a few weeks, we can build a production-ready solution. We have launched it last year. A huge interest in the market. We are working with multiple customers around the world on that front who are trying to accelerate their journey. So it is happening. I think it's called as Industry 4.0 Accelerator, Connected Factory Offering.
No, very good. Thank you for sharing. Bjorn, maybe for you, in terms of IoT initiatives, where do you see opportunity for integration between different business functions, like ERP platforms, IT and OT systems, where the data from these devices is being consolidated? Who's championing these initiatives at your clients and organizations? And can you perhaps share some scenarios on how IoT provides tangible results?
Good question, Greg. I think the real benefit comes really for IoT initiatives, which not just focusing on providing an IoT data point in any cloud dashboard. The real benefit is, from our point of view, really if you are combining those, let's say, IoT technologies, the IoT principles with the, let's say, standard processes, the backend process of an ERP system. Let me give you a concrete example. So we are offering a syntax and topic. It's called Industrial IoT Portal, which itself is a collection of different use cases. And this is important. So it's not just offering a POC and providing any dashboard. We focus on topics on like asset management. This means if you combine it with an ERP system, you could provide, if you focus on a manufacturing scenario, you could provide a digital twin of your production machines to people in the maintenance department. So they know from the past what happened on those equipments, what are the specifications behind. So the information which is typically already stored in the ERP system is something that you should also be providing in such an IoT scenario. And if you now combine this with, let's say, real live data from those equipments. So if you are using edge computing to collect the data, if you analyze the data in a way that it's not just a kind of a dashboarding where you're visualizing data, but if you really use this data and correlate this data with information which is typically also known in the ERP system, like the data regarding the product output, what was good, what was bad. And by doing this, you can do things like predictive quality or predictive maintenance from an asset perspective. So the real benefit is really coming if you focus on the concrete use cases, and the use cases which we see is certainly a topic called asset management. And this includes, as mentioned already, the predictive maintenance, which is certainly a path to go. So it starts from condition monitoring up to that predictive maintenance. But if you really combine it with the ERP system, it's a whole new world in terms of maintenance strategies. So you are predicting the way when possibly machines fall out before it even happens, and you can change from a purely time-based maintenance strategy to more event or more predictive approach. So this gives directly a benefit, as you can improve, let's say, the efficiency of your machines, the uptime of your machines, and those are the examples where we see really a big benefit.
No, very good, thank you. So where are we on this journey, Rowan? I'm going to pull you into this question now. Can you give us some perspective on the status of integration between these systems, ERP and IoT related platforms, and how the data is being generated from IoT is being leveraged by the ERP systems? You know, what benefits have you seen in the clients?
Absolutely, Greg. So yeah, we got to remember that since 2019, SAP has been actively working to engage with IoT and integrate it within specifically the S/4HANA platform. With the SAP IoT division, in conjunction with HANA and also partnering with the SAP Digital Business Services, they have enabled inventory management, supply chain, predictive maintenance, in order to basically gain real-time insights to generate potential and greater business agility. What we've seen in surveys, I think the most recent survey by KPMG has indicated that more than 3/4 of CEOs are considering that agility is the new currency of the manufacturing business. And as such, with that integration and ability and SAP's ability, specifically with HANA, to not only collect this data, but also to analyze it and gain visibility into operations, what we've seen is customers are able to reduce costs, improve operations, and increase production, specifically through new production design, development, and production.
Let me take a follow-up onto this too. I mean, it's a lot of these concepts are not new and they're not foreign to the industry.
No.
You know, so how are you seeing the cloud impacting the IoT? Is it being leveraged?
Right. So the biggest benefit we're seeing from the cloud is if customers no longer have to go through the standard life cycle of developments, procurements, in order to put together a platform such as what is being offered by Syntex, AWS, in this case, right? And what the overall end result is the ability to monetize IoT data easily. You're right, these are not new concepts. SKS Bearings, for example, has had an IoT device that would measure vibrations on their bearings for years. But before the cloud, either the PLC network or somebody had to go around to measure that. Now that is sent directly into the cloud with the advent of in-memory databases, such as HANA, I'm going to mention again, right? We're able to monetize that information now. We're able to change our business processes and our maintenance schedules in order to not incur unscheduled downtime, or to incur downtime at a time that is more beneficial to the business.
Got it. Well, before I switch gears on you, let's take a look at some of these polls that have been popping up. Maybe we can pull up that first poll and take a look at the results. Okay, so are you adopting the Internet of Things? So it looks like over half of the folks joining us today are in the process of doing just that. And we got about 30% or just shy of 30% that are thinking about it, but they haven't pulled the trigger yet. And then the balance is just kind of trying to figure out what to do next. Okay, how about our second poll? Okay, what challenges are your company facing when it comes to the Internet of Things? Interesting. So we've got a lack of strategy is the number one reason. Okay, that's insightful, and maybe an excellent parlay into my next question here.
Well, I'm gonna jump on that. See, and I think
please.
that's one of the other bigger benefits of the cloud, is that, you know, companies that are struggling with the strategy and the ability to implement, they can reach out to partners such as AWS and Syntax, who have a pre-built solution that can help them. Now, that may not be their strategy, but that can help drive their strategy towards the end goal for business process improvements. I mean, I think one of the critical benefits that we see from any IoT data, specifically industrial IoT, is that ability to evaluate the data at a macro level, which then enables that informed decision-making process for the business. And that's all driven by the cloud today.
I think that's a key insight, and I'm going to parlay it into this question, which I'd like to hear your comment on as well as yours, Bjorn. You know, walk me down the path of getting buy-in from upper management. You know, in a 30% environment where you're lacking a business strategy, how do you get that move forward from the top brass?
Yeah, it certainly depends on the specific upper management and the role. We have different discussions depending on whether we are discussing with an operations management. And certainly their target, their focus is to improve efficiency. Like the examples which were given, like reducing downtimes of their assets in the production floor. That's certainly their focus. And if you can give them concrete examples, and also what was mentioned, pre-packaged templates, how to easily use those technologies. So it's not just a technology and they don't have a clue how to really start with. So we have to reduce the risk. We have to give them a clear outlook, what is the benefit of having that solution. And if we can also demonstrate that it's not a several years running project, so they can start easy, you can start fast, but having also a real benefit and a fast benefit. This is certainly one of the key points. If you look from an IT management, so there's a different angle, yeah. Certainly from the buy-in, it's important also to say it's not let's say the hundreds platform they have to buy. So our objective is from a consulting background to use more out of the existing infrastructure and use more like from the public cloud, like the AWS infrastructure. It's often called beyond infrastructure. You can use those technology and those infrastructure that is available to get more out of it, yeah. By leveraging those technologies, you can really prove and you can reuse what is available, and by this you can also increase overall the costs. So this is more from the IT management part, but at the end it depends on the business case, and this is where we are typically have to prove based on reference examples, based on other customer examples, that it's not just a POC. So you have really to prove what are the benefits for the business at the end.
Right. Greg, if I can add to that
question.
I think this is something we face all the time. If I have to, at a high level, look at the customers we deal with in industrial IoT space, there is a bunch of customers who know what industrial IoT means. They also know what it means to their 10, 20, 30 plants, and they know what use cases to focus on. There, the journey is far more straightforward. Prove it out, your technology can work, and then off we go to the races. That's how it works. On the other hand, there is a whole bunch of customers, they know what Industry 4.0 means, but they do not know what it means to them. Before they can go to their management to ask for funding, they reach out to us to not only prove the technology works, can you demonstrate what is the value, business value? It's more of a business value initiative or a proof of value initiative, where we do that with partners like Syntax, with pre-built solution offerings, what we have put together, prove it out. At the same time, we also try to recommend them to do a maturity assessment as well as use case prioritization. Then they get a true holistic view of what they're walking into. Just because one plant is advanced, it can consume an Industry 4.0 solution. There could be a 20-year-old plant which could have connectivity issues. We face it all the time. So this is the holistic information upper management is expecting. We try to do as much as possible upfront, so they're able to answer not only the ROI question, but also what will it take to get there. So that is crucial.
Yeah, what do you think the biggest misperception of organizations have as it relates to an IoT and ERP integration?
Let me answer from my side. I think the good point is already if they are thinking about ERP integration. Yeah, so we do see a lot of IoT initiatives which do not have any integration with the ERP system at all. So which is purely technically focused, connecting machines and providing any information and doing some analytical pieces, which is for sure good. So it's from our point of view, it's already good if we are discussing about ERP integration. And if we are discussing it, it's also not just a technical integration. We often see it how to integrate it from a technical perspective. We see more the topic to discuss the processes. So where does it make sense to integrate with ERP system? What are the use cases where this end-to-end scenario makes really sense? So this topic of the process integration and just purely take the example of maintenance. Yeah, if you have a holistic maintenance strategy, it's not just in providing let's say data from your production machines. You have really think of where do you want to go in future with your maintenance strategy. Do you want to go away from this purely time-based every 3 months? I plan a maintenance activity to a more this predictive maintenance. And this is certainly required or requires integration with ERP. And as there are a ton of standard integration points available, but you have to be aware from process, but also from the technical integration perspective.
Right. Yeah, again, Greg, I would like to add something to what Bjorn mentioned. This is extremely important question, what you asked. This comes up consistently with our customers as well, because we, at least definitely, I do not see, or Amazon does not see as these are two different silos. This has to come together. Very simple example. When we are trying to do a condition monitoring or asset monitoring of assets operating in a manufacturing plant floor, there are literally millions of sensors possible across multiple plants and thousands of PLCs and hundreds of thousands of machineries operating out there. Real-time notifying this to a human being is out of question. It has to go into a system to process it. There has to be intelligence associated with that. Raise a ticket, whether it is a maintenance, which is predictive, or at a time when the company is comfortable off-shift hours. That's where the integration with ERP is extremely important. That's why we are also excited with the partnership we have between Syntax and AWS. There is a lot of ask around the world. Is there a pre-built offering again on this front where we can come in and tell the customer, this is how we can change the game around maintenance. You don't need to wait for hours or day together on downtime of the machinery and loose production. We can enable predictive maintenance. So this is crucial.
Do you want to add something, Ron? It looked like you had a thought on the top of your head.
Yeah, I just wanted to add security into that. IoT are simple devices. They notorious for not having any security around them. So the integration with them into an ERP system and a platform such as what is provided enables a centralized management of that security to ensure that those each individual endpoints don't become vulnerabilities.
That's an interesting nuance, and I think it's going to tie in as well to a topic that seems timeless in this whole scenario. One of the key questions, I'll throw this to you first, Pooja, but I'd like to hear from all of you. It's around IIoT, and it's the IT-OT, that information technology OT alignment. How do you address this topic? Because it's the elephant in the room 9 times out of 10.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this again is one of the key interest areas for every one of the customers we deal with. This IT world and the OT world has been kept separate for various reasons historically. And over a period of time, there has been a wall between these two areas. Again, Industry 4.0 is trying to bridge the wall by providing insights, not just in a standalone platform in the OT world. Once you gain the insights from the OT, bring it into the IT. Again, even for simple dashboard reportings like OEE and various other metrics, you need to bring these two data sources together. Otherwise, it's not possible to do that kind of reporting. OT alone is not going to cut it in the real world. The deeper integration between ERP system, maintenance system, logistical system, bringing parts in, finished goods out, managing systems which is going to manage maintenance. The deep integration between all of it is foundational for the success of any project out there, because today human beings operate within these IT systems to do their day-to-day job functions. Providing that within their work environment of an ERP system or a maintenance system is so crucial. That's why when we implement an industrial IoT project, even for the Industry 4.0 accelerator I talked about, Greg, integrating these two is a foundational capability we offer as part of the journey. Again, that's a crucial reason why we are discussing with Syntax, where we have a deep integration between our IoT services and Syntax SAP capability. It's a deep offering we have put together as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments on that one before I jump back into the world?
I'd like to comment a bit, because I think we can take some we can take some history here from the SaaS market. So there was a big shift over the last 10 years where business owners started moving into more technology roles. They spend 51% of their time in tech, and they start driving business outcomes by taking a leadership role in the actual business outcome. And so what happened over the last 10 years in SaaS, where now 65% of decisions in SaaS are made by the business owners, IT plays more of a federated or a federal government type of role. Security, compliance, continuity, the gates around the solution, but not the solution itself. So you're not selling the future of IIoT to IT. You're selling it to the outcome owner, whether that's a government, whether that's a business buyer, whether it is in the line of business. And then you're bringing technology people in the room to make sure that the proper controls and governance, management, measurement, and monitoring, and all the things downstream are in place to make it successful and make it compliant. But this learning from SaaS, I think over the next decade, will be brought into the IoT space as well, and it'll be a benefit to, I think, everyone.
It's going to be interesting to watch that unfold. I agree with you. Carl, we've got you here. I mean, in terms of Nitrex's digitalization journey, what did you guys tackle first, and why'd you go there?
Let's say as we are in the lucky position, you know, that we are on the one hand building the equipment and the automation, but on the other hand having our own service centers as internal customers, if you like. So we can obviously drive our product and process development by having a full access of asset and performance data. So we have data digitally available for many years. So we have it on our servers. We are now pushing it obviously up into the cloud. And we started by developing digital twins for the machines. So where we use the SAP Asset Intelligent Network as a backbone structure, if you like. So this was very much supported by Syntax, of course, Björn. And then we went on to implementing models. So, and there, as we are heat treaters ourselves, you know, we go rather into some kind of hybrid models, which gives us the opportunity to put some physics, mathematics behind the machine learning. And we are going to offer, obviously, machine learning solutions like Björn already mentioned, predictive maintenance, anomaly detections, calculating of useful remaining component lifetime, these kind of things. And the other part is exactly tying in as well in our discussion here, because we do have process control software out there since many years with more than 450 installations worldwide. And we are now bringing this up into the cloud, actually offering it to our customers as a SaaS. And by doing so, we actually have, you know, our customers have the possibility to access the features without having to spend a ton of money up front. Yeah. So we are well advanced, and so we will be able to offer this product to the market in the near future. That's a matter of months now. Yeah.
All right, so we have another poll question for the audience. We can take a couple moments. So what are your business drivers for the Internet of Things? Try and pick out that key one that's top of mind for your organization, if you could, and we'll circle back to this in a second before we dive into the rest of the Q&A. Yeah, any lessons learned that you could share with us, Carl? Any I call them toe stubbings or things that help other people not make the same mistakes?
Yeah, honestly spoken, you know, I didn't expect that in order to bring all these data and things into the cloud for evaluation, obviously, that we have to run through quite a number of iterations to find, let's say, a data structure that finally fits our needs. Okay, so somehow we have to adopt as we go, but I think that's what innovation is all about. So, however, I think we have competent and reliable partners in Syntax and other companies from whom we are able to learn, and we are still learning, and the project is progressing well, so that's fine. In order to remain, you know, the leaders kind of in our field, obviously we have to constantly invest into future technologies. As mentioned, providing turnkey solutions is our greatest strength. Yeah. So together with our understanding of the customer requirements, I think we are able to deliver solutions that improve the performance of the parts of our customers. Maybe at this point, I should also mention that our team, namely Mike Löbke and Lukas Voy, but also our teams in Montreal, Poland, and Germany, are really driving the project forward. And we will have the full support, and we have the full support of our management and board, which probably answers as well some of the questions. So we are in a lucky position here. Thanks to everyone who is working so concentrated on this product. Yeah.
And maybe to add this, I think what is really important, this is what is often a lessons learned in such projects, is certainly it is a journey. Yes, you have the big picture in your mind, and you have to start certainly with certain use cases, but you have also to be agile. So you have also to consider which project methodology you are using, and things like an agile mindset and also agile project methodologies does help in this case. Yeah, but overall, it's a journey. It's not a journey that takes several years, but at least you can start, let's say, soon and learn while you are doing it. Yeah, and then you see the concrete outcome, and if you see the outcome very early, then it's the best proof point for everyone.
Great insight. So here we go with our poll results. So it looks like we've got, data analytics is a big driver for this group. Not too much of a surprise. Let's see what our second one looks like. Okay. Very good. Insightful. So I've got one more question, and I want to save some time to address the questions that are coming up with our audience as well. So Jay, I'm going to throw this one to you. We've seen and heard a tremendous amount about the pandemic catalyzing change and adaptation in organization, and much of what has been accelerated through digitalization. How has the buyer of industrial IoT applications changed? And what lessons learned do you think it'll help organizations transition out of the state that we've been in for the past 14 months?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I shared that automation is the #1 spending area at the moment. It's the one area of focus and resource and everything else. Companies are trying to figure out a degree of resiliency to, for the first time in 100 years, we've had a human-centric pandemic, something that we would have not predicted. So the automation and the rethinking of every piece of workflow and business logic and the processes that underpin every company, that has expanded the buyer base into people that may not have thought about these different areas, are now expanding their thinking into hardware, software, and services and other areas of data and things like that. But they're wrapping it around this idea of automation. Number 2 is there's a whole level of demographic changes happening. The buyers are getting younger. We're within 4 to 5 years now of the majority of IoT buyers being millennial, IIoT buyers being millennial.
Wow.
There's a different psychology, there's a different behavior, there's a different buying journey. It's elongated, it never ends. There's a different level of work that's done up front in the ways maybe 10 years ago, people would have looked at this and the people they would surround them are different today. You know, they're more likely today to be listening to a clubhouse room today than a webinar. They're more apt to go and do their own research. And we know a majority of them want to be anonymous. And so 2 weeks ago, when Google and Apple, you know, kind of got privacy religion, and all of our iPhones are now updated and there's no more cookies and targeting, all of this early journey that they want to be anonymous, they actually are anonymous. And there aren't cookies, there's not breadcrumbs, there's not signals, there's not all this knowledge about what's going on. And so this idea for vendors and others in this community is the only way to understand this early buying journey now are the 5 people wrapped around them. It might be the white paper they're reading. It might be the podcast they're listening to. It might be the Chamber of Commerce event they're attending. It might be the association that they sit on the board of. All these things, including IIoT world. I mean, all these things now become really important to understand what these customers are doing when these digital breadcrumbs go away. And so understanding the future of buying and understanding the future of this industry for the next decade, you've got to overlay both. And I think you need to be customer obsessed no matter where you are in this industry, and understanding these changes and how people make decisions, how people make vendor selections in the future are radically different than the supply chain or the linear distribution models we've had in the past.
Interesting insights. Very keen. Thank you. All right, well, the questions are popping up like crazy. So let me dive into some of these. We're going to switch gears now and entertain the ones that are coming in from you folks that are tuned in. Once again, you can send them in via the Q&A chat here, or you can also send them via #syntax_IIoT across the social channels. So Dean has a question for us. This says, in addition to simple monitoring of processes, do you have any real-time adaptive control technology for metal additive manufacturing? I think this is going to you, Carl.
Okay, that's talking about additive manufacturing. Let's say in our case, we are obviously not in the, let's say, printing of parts or however you do it, okay? We are rather in the heat treating. There are some interesting, let's say, possibilities even while printing. For example, one of the issues you have to take care of is basically the heat you produce directly. And if you would be able to use this heat to perform at the same time while printing actually a heat treating process, I think this would be a great thing. Yeah. So obviously you need to have super fast, sensors and everything, but yeah, I think it can be modeled.
Greg, I can add something to that as well.
Please,
we have done a lot of work in that area around additive manufacturing with various customers, which I cannot name on this call, but we have built a lot of solutions with these customers around when the 3D part is being printed, trying to get to a prescriptive quality is it's very much possible. If you have a good AI/ML algorithm and a vision-based system which can take pictures when the printing is happening micron by micron. As part of every wave, you take pictures and continuously have an AI/ML model algorithm which can tell you whether it's good, bad, or ugly, and you have an option to fix it in the next run as the next wave of printing is happening. Those are all the solutions. It's very much possible today, and we have built it as well with customers, even like a few years back before I took this role. In my earlier role, we have built this for a Swedish customer, building a pretty complicated aerospace component out there. Now with auto industries pushing additive manufacturing, there is a lot of interest. This is going to become prime time in the next few years, this technology. So these are the pre-built solutions we are working with customers to go make it happen.
Very good. Thank you both. Let's see, we've got a couple interesting questions here. Christian has one. It says, do you foresee as the future owners of industrial data content, or who do you foresee as the future owners of industrial data content? Machine data for predictive use cases, hyperscaler, machine manufacturers, SIs, the OEMs, manufacturers, and will there be a Facebook type winner for IIoT data? Well, take out your crystal balls, gentlemen. Let's see what you got.
If you want, I can take a first shot at it. I go through this daily when I talk to customers. So I think going with the trends, SaaS-based offering or even a virtual private cloud, most of the manufacturing customers we work with, they prefer a virtual private cloud because they want to own the data, and they are not comfortable even giving to a SaaS vendor out there. And not that they are not using SaaS offering, they use SaaS offerings. But manufacturing, any solutions we build, most of the customers, if I look at the numbers which I have before me, they are looking for virtual private cloud. Going with that concept, which means customers own the data. That's where they want it to be. And it is up to them to give access to the data to others to provide insights. And that's how we are seeing it today.
I can confirm it from our side. So it's in most cases we do observe the same, that let's say we have this virtual private cloud concept that the companies want to own their own data, but for sure it depends on the scenario. If those shop floor scenarios, they want not to put the data out. If you are more like a Nitrix a vendor or let's say supplier of machines, and for sure there's a different interest. And if you can, let's say, share, and there's a big benefit also in having this data maybe from different customers, because then your quality of the algorithm that you can use is much better if you have the experience from more than one customer. So if you can make this transparent to the audience and to the people, that everyone can benefit of having this data from others, even if it is anonymous, it's a benefit for everyone. But from a maturity, I also see that it's more still a kind of private cloud approach.
Maybe one other thing, Greg, I would like to add to what Bjorn mentioned. We also see edge as a huge component. The reality is today, when you go into a manufacturing world, industrial IoT solution is going to be an hybrid architecture. It is not going to be 100% cloud. It is going to span between edge and the cloud. And depending on use cases, depending on customers, it is going to vary whether it is going to be a higher percentage of compute happening at the edge versus cloud. For example, if I go to a defense sector today in North America, or even in Europe or any other part of the world, edge plays a huge amount of role. They have legal mandate, compliance regulations, which prevents them from sending data to the cloud. We support all of it. Our solutions today, what we build, it spans edge and the cloud. It is always hybrid. We have offerings which is available in the edge as good as we can do in the cloud. So both are very real for us today.
Got it.
I can just support this. Okay, I see it in the same way. You know, it's in the hybrid setup. Okay, you need to have, let's say, the private data and all these kind of things, and the real-time processing has to be at the customer's place. Put it like this, yeah. And then you can do evaluations, predictive things. In our case, obviously, it's very useful for all of our customers that we are able to compare the behavior of all our machines. So in that case, but it has to be aggregated data.
Very good. There's Magdalena just put a question in. It says, how important, in your opinion, is the possibility to visualize IoT sensors in a digital twin environment? Does spatial information like location of sensors and a 3D building model or an equipment model bring much value in IoT technology?
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Sure, no problem. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Bjorn. Again, one of a hugely interesting topic for me personally, as well as for Amazon in this area. There is a lot of interest around that, Greg. If I look at digital twin at a plant floor point of view, there is a whole bunch of types of digital twins possible in a manufacturing environment or a physical plant floor. For example, if you're talking about physical infrastructure, it became a lot more interesting for customers last year, more so with COVID, to detect safety issues, occupancy issues from a remote environment to understand that better. And there is a lot of interest around that area. If I look at the manufacturing process point of view, this happens all the time in complicated, high precision, low volume industry like aerospace. There is a design intent and the actual manufacturing product which comes out, there is always going to be deviation. Even though it is within the quality control tolerance limits set by the engineering, the part when it goes into a environment, for example, in an F-35 plane, if it is the upper end of tolerance spectrum versus lower end, the behavior is completely different. They're all trying to understand that better. They set up a digital twin to compare the actual part which is coming out compared to the design stipulations and how is it really performing in the real world. Huge interest. Even a high volume manufacturing like automotive is trying to get to that, given that there is a huge amount of warranty issue with respect to powertrain components. Lots of use cases of interest to people. It's not just visualization alone. It's tying back analytics and learnings what you're getting from the actual behavior of the part back into that. So manufacturing, engineering, all of them can learn out of it. I think that's what we are seeing in the industry.
I can just confirm what Puka said, and also even the visualization, we do have some projects where the focus is on visualization. So even just replacing paper, you can't imagine how much paper is also in the industrial floor still available. So in just removing paper, providing data in a digital way. So whether it's documents, drawings, specifications, all those kind of things. So removing the need of searching one, having always the right version available. So even the purely replacement of paper is a big benefit for many ones, and it's driven by also regulations that you have to prove that you have the right version of the documents, drawings, etc. So the digital twin has so many different angles, but even removing paper part is a big benefit for many customers already.
No, thank you, Bjorn. Thank you, Pugo. Gregory's got a question. Actually, got a couple in here. It says, the condition monitoring and predictive maintenance needs that Nitrex mentioned, Carl, is that for process control, the machinery, the facilities themselves, or is it both?
It's both. It's both. Basically, obviously, we have a look on the machinery. The big target is, as Bjorn already mentioned, it's the quality of the parts we are producing. So, but of course, you know, you have some kind of a holistic view on the production. So I think the idea or the demand in the future is that our customers or the customers of our customers do have an uninterrupted record of what happened to their parts. I think this is one of the biggest requirements now. And of course, you need to be able to prove basically your carbon footprint on each of those parts. Okay, that's another big thing coming up now. Yeah.
Different question. Why does the group feel like there's a lack of strategy? Is that because the customer is unaware of what they want, or because they don't know what's possible?
Maybe both. Okay, of course, you know, this new technology is emerging, you know, and going on a super fast pace. Yeah, so catching up is not that easy. And the other thing, obviously, you have to adjust your strategy kind of to this unbelievable speed, you know, as the things are evolving. So I think it's twofold. Yeah.
Yeah. And just if I had to add to what Carl mentioned, Greg, this goes back to what Jay also mentioned earlier. People are trying to buy business outcomes. The business outcomes for industry segments is different, even within a specific industry segment or within the specific customer. If I take a simple example of an auto customer, there's final assembly plant, there is powertrain plant, and there is like press shops, welding equipment, things like that. The business outcome needed by all these use cases and the plants are different. And today, the market is still evolving. AI/ML and IoT is the last 5 years worth of development, which happened with the commoditized kind of software provided by vendors like us. These solutions is still catching up. And this is where I love the slide that Jay presented earlier, that million ISV solutions, it is definitely needed in the world because the amount of use cases needed to be solved, business outcomes is literally hundreds of thousands across multiple industry segments we face. Today, it is very generic in nature, a lot of these solutions. That specialization, we have already started driving now with our partner community that if you come to us that you want to build, we are having an IoT solution, the first question for me is, which industry segment? If it is auto or aero, what is the use case within that particular industry segment, within that particular customer? That is the level in which we need to go. That's why the customers have a perception that there is a lack of strategy, because they have a far more deeper expectation out of these solution vendors. Today, what they are seeing is a lot of generic solutions, and that's what the industry has to change and adopt.
Good perspective. Well, we are just about at the bottom of the hour, so I'm going to squeak one more question in here because I always like to end on something that's helping the future leaders and shape a little bit of the minds that are emerging. Sagar has a question. He says in developing countries like India, manufacturing industries are a bit reluctant to adopt IIoT. He's looking for some guidance, basically. He says it becomes difficult for young aspirants to have the appropriate career growth trajectory. Can you advise any additional coursework or skill sets that could help him embark on a career in IIoT? I'll give you 10 seconds to answer.
I think if you're looking for a coursework, Greg, there is enough amount of videos we launch to learn IoT, for whether it is a simple connectivity of connecting a sensor or a complex setup like a PLC or a SCADA device in a plant floor. It's very much now possible. It's not that complicated. We have pre-built offerings. Our services can do that today with OPC-based servers and historians. There are enough YouTube videos we have built and enough offerings in our website which people can take a look. In fact, adoption in India, again, the challenges are also very different. Labor cost is lower there. It's not, they will always compare the actual cost of the software with labor cost. So we have to justify it maybe with quality initiatives. That always helps in Asia. Asian, if I go and deal with customers in Asia, quality use cases are far more important as well.
Oh, perfect. Well, hopefully that helps. And feel free to reach out to us as well too, Sagar. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today's session. I'd also like to invite you to visit our events page for up and coming educational webinars and webcasts brought to you by IIoT World. We have 3 IIoT World Day events in the months to come. June 16th will be our Smart Cities Day focus. August 12th will be focused on energy. October 6th will be ICS cybersecurity. And on December 8th, we'll be looking at digital manufacturing. So stay tuned and make sure to register. Special thanks to our sponsor today, Syntax, for this outstanding session, and to our panelists, Bjorn, Rowan, Jay, Carl, and Pugal. Outstanding insight, gentlemen. Thank you. We always welcome feedback. So if you have a suggestion or a topic, drop us a line and let us know what you think. And if you like what you heard today, we'd invite you to subscribe to our newsletters, YouTube channels, and follow us on Twitter at IIoT_world. This concludes our program for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.